And for anyone out there who is saying Kamala Harris is far more progressive than Joe Biden, she's not. Look at the numbers she just put out this week about long-term capital gains tax. What Kamala Harris is guilty of is being a black woman.
Now, I'm sorry. What was that from Stephanie Ruhle on MSDNC? That anybody who says that Kamala is more progressive than Joe Biden, they're just lying because she isn't. Now they're running from the word progressive again? Already? They ran from it about 100 years ago when their boy Woodrow Wilson, the pro-KKK racial segregationist, and the only president buried in Washington, D.C., Woodrow Wilson, leader of the progressive movement. They had the Klan Bake in New York, the big Democrat convention with the thousands of Klan members because the Democrat Party gave us the Klan. Woodrow Wilson, electricity had come along in motion pictures, and Woodrow Wilson showed the first motion picture, the first movie in the White House, and it was Birth of a Nation. Might still be one of the most racist motion pictures, ask anybody, in existence to this day. Isn't that remarkable? Yes, sir. That's and Stephanie Ruhle said she's not more progressive than Biden. What is she? All she is that she is couching the label progressive as an attack, isn't she? And saying, really, the reason she's being attacked is because she's a black woman, and Indian, too, because you got to build that. Don't leave out the Indian part. A WOC, a woman of color. That's the only reason, because that's the only card these racist pimps have to play. The party that gave us the White Knights of the KKK and the Confederate States of America and Jim Crow laws, and all they have is pretending that they're not the racist party. Isn't that great? It's good to be a Democrat. We're not the Democrat Party. Boy, oh boy. Crazy. Gotta tell you. You know, the annual Al Smith dinner is being held in New York City next month, October 17th. And there's a comedian named Jim Gaffigan. You know Jim Gaffigan? He's a pretty funny guy. Jim Gaffigan posted on Instagram that he is going to participate in the Al Smith dinner. The Al Smith dinner next month. President Trump will be there, and allegedly, Kamala Harris will be there. I did hear a report yesterday or the day before that she was going to pull the plug on that because she didn't want to be seen in the same room with Donald Trump. But in theory, we've got the big debate next week between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. And does Kamala have a middle name? She's got to have a middle name, doesn't she? I should know her middle name, like, Hillary Diane Rodham Clinton and William Jefferson Clinton and all that stuff. And Kamala's got to have some kind of funky middle name.
Debbie, D-E-V-I.
Oh, not Debbie, but Debbie, D-E-V-I, D-E-V-I. Okay. Well, her mother's from India and her father from Jamaica. Her father is still alive and well, and he's a well-known Marxist economist. Commie, raised in another commie household. See how that goes? Amazing stuff. Yes, it is. Now, there is a soundbite I want to play. I was not here yesterday, again, because I was at a radio industry conference in Washington yesterday that had been lined up long ago. And I was on a panel. It was a very small panel. It was me and ABC News radio reporter Stephen Portnoy, who used to work here at my mothership radio station, WMAL in Washington, D.C., and I've known Stephen Portnoy for about 15 years, I think. And we sat on a stage yesterday and talked about the state of the news media to a large extent. Perfectly nice conversation. I'm told I got a little feisty. I don't think I did. But I want to play, enough about me. Let's go to President Trump. President Trump did a 1 hour, because I wasn't here yesterday, I couldn't get to it yesterday, did a 1 hour episode. It was a live town hall with a big live audience with Sean Hannity on the Fox News channel night before last. President Trump did. And I saw much or most, if not all of it, night before last. And there was something that got my attention and reminded me of something from history, if you will. President Trump was talking about how Kamala Harris is such a fraud, and the town hall was in Pennsylvania. It was held day before yesterday. That was the date that President Trump wanted to have a debate with Kamala Harris on the Fox News channel. But the Democrats are such cowards and frauds that they said, no, there will be no debate with Donald Trump on the Fox News channel, just with the friendly ABC News, George Stephanopoulos, Clinton White House network. And so that's going forward. And President Trump, because he's not a coward, said, okay, I'll do it with your left-wing, radical, America-hating, Republican-hating, saboteur network, ABC fake news. But President Trump on with Sean Hannity night before last in Pennsylvania, huge venue, huge audience, and President Trump was talking in Pennsylvania where fracking is huge, and Kamala was dead set against it, said again and again at public events, I'm going to ban fracking and ban fracking, and now Pennsylvania has shaped up to be a key swing state. I'm appalled by the language of our political system these days. But, if you don't win Raftoon County and the Chinese lesbian immigrant vote in Raftoon County in western Pennsylvania, that's the path to the White House. You can't win the presidency without the swing state, and the key county is Wiftat County, and the Chinese lesbian vote controls everything. And without that, you can't win. Because we slice and dice this stuff like it's a Ron Popeil product. Ron Popeil, yeah. But in any case, the one moment that got my attention and reminded me of something from many years ago was this moment, President Trump mocking Kamala for her flip-flop, just another flip-flop. It's fine when you're a Democrat. Now she's all for fracking. Even though she's going to ban it, she's dead set against it. She in Q&A with audience members, oh, yes, I will immediately ban fracking because we need to enrich Russia and Iran by doing that, which is, not a tertiary effect. It's a primary effect, at a bare minimum, a secondary effect of destroying the energy industry in the United States. You enrich Putin and Russia and Iran and the Ayatollahs. You cause mayhem and war because you have abdicated your responsibility as the leader of the free world, which is what Joe Biden did. But this kind of fun moment that reminded me of a great line from history. If you can find its origin, I'll give you $1. President Trump night before last.
You have no choice. You've got to vote for me. You've got to vote for me. You got to. Even if you don't like me, Yeah. It's no, but even if you don't like me, you can sit there and say, I can't stand that guy, but there's no way I'm going to vote for her.
Even if you don't like me, I was chuckling and watching this. And look, if you like President Trump, then it's not that he can do no wrong, because sometimes he missteps, sometimes his political instincts elude him. But he's a funny guy, and he loves the audience. And he said, even if you don't like me, you've got to vote for me, he said. And he said it several times in several ways. And I thought, and the crowd was loving it because, he's funny. And if you like him, he's always funny. If you don't like him, you don't always think he's funny. But I love the vote for me even if you don't like me thing, because there's too much at stake, and Kamala is not on anybody's side, not inside of our borders, except for the illegal alien gang members from Venezuela and stuff. You have no choice. You got to vote for me because look at the alternative. And I was watching him and chuckling, and I was taking notes, and I was texting Michael Pierce here. I was writing a text that I would hit send on the next morning, which is my habit these days. But he said, he acknowledged on Wednesday, USA Today writes, that a lot of voters don't like him. So he has to persuade them. Shouldn't that always be the case? He has to persuade them. to be even more negative toward Vice President Kamala Harris. Well, that's not quite it. He says, you can't take a chance. You have no choice. You've got to vote for me. Honestly, even if you don't like me, you can't sit there and say, I can't stand that guy. But there's no way I'm going to vote for her. All right? Now, that's pretty good stuff. And what did that remind me of? Well, it reminded me of a line that I personally attributed to Ronald Reagan administration, Ambassador of the United Nations, Jeane Kirkpatrick, and she was ferocious and smart and on our side, right? And I attributed it to her. And when I went to look it up, it got a little more complicated than that. But I recall Jeane Kirkpatrick talking about perhaps the Shah of Iran, who had been deposed by the Islamic Revolution in Iran. But the Shah of Iran had, women going to college and wearing skirts and being their own people and having professions before the Ayatollahs came along, was pro-Western enough to get along with everybody in the world, not a genocidal anti-Israel fanatic. The Shah, Reza Pahlavi, was just fine. I met his son one time in Santa Barbara. I think his son lives around here now, doesn't he? I think it lives around. I'm asking Michael Piercy. Like he tracks the whereabouts of the Pahlavi family. But never mind that. Jeane Kirkpatrick, because the left always attacks us, say, well, we support dictators. And especially during the Cold War, there were certainly instances where we did support people that could be described as dictators. But it's because it was the lesser of two evils, and everybody should grow up playing the board game Risk. The board game Risk, certainly during the Cold War era, a very popular board game, and it's wonderful. Teaches you about moving armies from country to country and continent to continent and taking over, and it's the good guys versus the bad guys. You should raise your children, if you can still get the game Risk. It should be played by children everywhere. But in any case, Jeane Kirkpatrick, talking about whichever alleged dictator it was at the time, said, and I'm going to use a little bit of blunt language here, said, he may be a son of a bitch, but he's our son of a bitch. And I went to look it up, and it turns out, like everything else, and thanks to the internet, everything's more complicated than we'd originally thought it was. And there are articles and historians that say that it was Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1939 that used the phrase originally, talking about a dictator in the Dominican Republic, Trujillo, who was there forever and ever, and that Franklin Roosevelt, FDR, said, he may be a son of a bitch, but he's our son of a bitch. And then there are other reports that say that Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and then who else said it too? Somebody else said, talking about Anastasio Somoza in Nicaragua. My Uncle Tony got Anastasio Somoza out of the country there when it was time to evacuate. But that's another story for another day. And Anastasio Somoza, allegedly it was said, he may be a son of a bitch, but he's our son of a bitch. And for some reason, that line occurred to me when I was watching Donald Trump night before last, saying that you got to vote for me. You may not like me, all right? You may not like me, but you can't sit there and say, I can't stand that guy, right? And then not vote for him. Because one of the things you can say about, you can say a lot of things about Donald Trump. Say, mean tweets, and sometimes he says things that are impolitic, and he sounds like a New York billionaire, which he is, and all that stuff. And he speaks off the cuff and off the top of his head. Kamala never does. She doesn't have a cuff or a head to talk off of, but never mind that. Even if you don't like Donald Trump, even if you think he's an S.O.B., he's our S.O.B. He's on our side. And honestly, Kamala Harris isn't even on our side. She is not on our side, which is crazy, but true. So whether it's Anastasio Somoza or Trujillo or the Shah of Iran, he may be an S.O.B., but he's our S.O.B. And for some reason that occurred to me. I was talking to my best girl, and I was like, hey, you know what I just thought of? And, and she's like, yeah, I'm bored, whatever. I'm paraphrasing. But another Trujillo reference. That's kind of weird. Hey, as you gear up for back to school and the fall season, your feet deserve the same level of support, that you've had throughout all of your summer adventures. Introducing G-Defy shoes. G-Defy shoes have VersaShock technology. Unlike ordinary brands of shoes, G-Defy shoes offer superior shock absorption and a trampoline-like energy return underneath your feet. That help provide relief from knee pain, ankle pain, foot pain, even problems with your back sometimes. Whether you're a parent tackling the kids and back to school, chasing after, or just hustling through the daily grind everywhere in America these days, G-Defy shoes offer the comfort and versatility that your feet crave. My best girl and I, we each have a pair of G-Defy shoes, and we love them. They really do push back on your arches, and it's great. Every pair also comes with 2 free supportive orthotics, 2 sets of orthotics and special lateral stabilizer that has been proven to improve your stride, the way you walk or run. And as a listener to my humble show, you get to enjoy a special back-to-school offer. You visit gdefy.com. You're going to get $20 off your order of $100 or more with the code Chris, just my first name. That's gdefy.com, gdefy.com. Don't forget to use the code Chris for $20 off your order of $100 or more. Step into the fall season with G-Defy shoes. Visit gdefy.com today. Yeah, don't let the fascists win. Don't let the commies win. Don't let the totalitarians win. The left is coming for your rights. Donald Trump is many things. And one of the things he is on our side.
Even if you don't like me, you can sit there and say, I can't stand that guy, but there's no way I'm going to vote for her.
Now, the Washington Post is nothing if not a Democrat Party front group. You may recall that Kamala Harris, during her first 3 years as vice president, had a 92% staff turnover, because they were throwing themselves off of rooftops. So it was like Gaza. It was crazy at the gay parade. That's the gay parade in Gaza. They go up to a roof and they all throw themselves off the roof. Well, somebody else throws them off, but yeah, same. And Kamala Harris had 92% staff turnover during her first 3 years as vice president because it was a hostile work environment. No one liked her. The people closest to her that worked with her every day, they were quitting. They were jumping out of windows. They were leaving the business of politics, leaving Washington in their Priuses, moving back into mom's house, all that stuff. Well, the Washington Post and the centibillionaire Jeff Bezos, they're on cleanup duty. That's coming up. This is one of these good to be a Democrat moments, good to be a Democrat, an example of the filthy, rotten, corrupt news media giving a tongue bath to any Democrat that slithers out of the pit. And in this case, that's Kamala Harris. And you may recall the story that Kamala Harris had a 92% staff turnover as vice president for 3 years, and that's when everybody stopped talking about it. But under Kamala Harris, the office of the vice president has been called a revolving door with the staff exodus and all the key aides heading for the exits. And according to exhaustive reporting on the subject, that's not hyperbole, and you're not going to read about it in the national media for the most part, but open the books. Quantify the extraordinarily high 91.5% staff turnover in the vice president's office. Now, that's a pretty good job when you come to Washington, want to be in politics. You're on the staff of the vice president of the United States in the greater White House complex. And, it's you get the fancy business cards with the little White House thing on it. And it's great stuff. But it was such a nightmare that I was joking about it at the time, that people were throwing themselves out of windows. They had to put nets, I said, around the buildings and a bounce house outside on the sidewalk because the employees were bouncing off the sidewalks. And it's because it was said over and over again by people fleeing her office, only by certain media outlets, of course, that it was such a horrible, terrible place to work because of her, because of the environment that she created. The left-wing rag, The Atlantic, talked about the top-to-bottom dysfunction. In her first year and a half, they wrote after a year and a half as vice president, Harris saw the departure of her chief of staff, communications director. Again, these are some of the most vaunted jobs, the most valued jobs in Washington, D.C. Domestic policy advisor, national security advisor, and other top aides, The Atlantic magazine wrote, and they wanted to give her a tongue bath, but this is what they found, and somehow it made it into the story. Now, the Washington Post is, of course, owned by Jeff Bezos, who is worth hundreds of billions of dollars, just bought a new $80 million Gulfstream jet, the Gulfstream 700. It's a beauty. It's a honey. You can find it online, interior and exterior. And it's his third or fourth jet, not in a row, that he owns right now. He owns 3 or 4 jets right now. And he found a way to block people online from tracking the movements and the whereabouts of his jets. You see that thing? Because, they might track your jet, and it could be embarrassing because your carbon footprint is larger than the carbon footprint of the city of Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, as any child of 6 will tell you. But Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. He bought a museum in Washington and turned it into his house so he could be close to Hillary Clinton when she won the presidential election, but she lost the presidential election. So now he's stuck with a museum. Anybody want to buy a slightly used museum? But the Washington Post has the headline today, Kamala Harris ran her office like a prosecutor. Not everyone liked that. After a difficult first year as vice president, Harris has grown into her role. Really? Grown into her role? And found staff who respond better to her style. It was just a stylistic issue. And this is the Today story in the Washington Post by Cleve R. Wootson. What did Cleve R. Wootson give us at the White House recently? He's the one who, he's a Democrat frontman, and they have Dan Diamond on there too, 2 Democrat Party operatives, apparatchiks, pretending to be journalists at the Washington Post and all that good stuff. But he embarrassed himself at the White House briefing recently because he asked, can't the White House censor or stop? What did he want them to stop?
Elon Musk interview with Trump.
Oh, yeah. He wanted Cleve R. Wootson, who typed up this piece for Kamala. He's an ROC. He's a reporter of color. And he asked the LGBTQ SOC, spokeswoman of color at the White House, asked her, well, gosh, can't the White House make it stop?
Elon Musk is slated to interview Donald Trump tonight on X. What role does the White House or the president have in sort of stopping that or stopping the spread of that?
Stopping that? You are a Nazi, Cleve R. Wootson. You're too stupid to know it, undoubtedly. Probably went to Harvard. But just amazing. What role does the White House have in stopping that? Because Elon Musk is going to interview Donald Trump, and Cleve R. Wootson asked the White House whether they had a role in stopping that or preventing the spread of that because they're little Hitlers. And Cleve R. Wootson is the little Hitler in this case. And in that case, now here he comes. On the day after President Joe Biden decided to end his reelection bid in July, more than 300 former staffers for Vice President Kamala Harris publicly endorsed her candidacy. Sure, but they all quit in disgust and threw themselves out of windows. A flurry of alumni support with little precedent in this already unusual campaign. Boy, just shave your tongue, Cleve R. Wootson and Dan Diamond. Boy, that is amazing stuff. And then they got this. We were able to witness her leadership firsthand. Her leadership forced 300 people to quit in disgust, according to the left-wing Atlantic magazine. But Cleve R. Wootson and Dan Diamond, they're cleaning it up for, it's, clean up on aisle Kamala. The former staffers wrote in a letter, "We were able to witness her leadership firsthand." And Cleaver Woodson's not going to get into she's an extraordinary leader of great character. This is the Soviet Union. This is North Korea. Pravda and Izvestia had nothing on the Jeff Bezos Democrat Party Washington Post. The rapidly assembled letter was a spontaneous outpouring of affection for Harris. Now, it was nothing of the kind. It was staged and set up and orchestrated by the party and then given to Cleaver Woodson at the Washington Post to do this Soviet-style propaganda piece because everybody knows that she's a nightmare. And not everybody, but everybody that pays close attention and listens to my radio show, and probably the radio station you're listening to now knows about it. Harris's record as a boss has been the focus of news stories throughout her career and amplified by high-profile staff departures. As a senator, her office developed a reputation for a revolving door. According to a legislative analysis, the turnover in Harris's Senate office ranked her 9th among senators who served between 2017 and 2021. Turnover was especially high in 2019 as some left to join her campaign. Oh, see, they weren't quitting in disgust. They were joining her presidential campaign, which didn't make it to the first primary. More than 90% of Harris's vice presidential staff who started working in the early 2021 have since left the office. Oh, okay, more than 90%. According to a Washington Post analysis after the Atlantic magazine did it, of 101 positions, more than 90% left. Okay. That's just, and here they are mopping it up, cleaning it up. Oh, no, it's because her leadership style is so wonderful. Her leadership style is like a prosecutor. Yeah, at the Nuremberg trials. She's so charming that 90% of the people left. She had one of the highest turnover rates on Capitol Hill, where there are a lot of really awful people. Almost all of them, not all of them, but almost all of them Democrats. There's a long history of that stuff going on there. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, so there's the Washington Post and Cleaver Woodson, Dan Diamond, doing the work of the Democrat Party, working for Jeff Bezos, whose new Gulfstream 700 is beautiful. It really is. And his carbon footprint is larger than the carbon footprint of South Sudan. But that's okay. That's okay. All right, let's take a phone call. Lots of great Americans and smart people, unlike, the Kamala Harris campaign and all of that stuff. All right, let's talk to Frederick calling from Dixon, Illinois. Frederick, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Great to talk to you, Chris. And obviously, by talent on loan from God for you, for sure, your show is amazing and your insight. But let's remember that you talked about the price of gasoline when Trump filled up the Federal Reserves with crude oil at the lowest price.
Yeah.
And then now Kamala, because she has no intelligence, they're draining it, not for an emergency. The emergency is they need to get elected and stay in power, not for a national emergency. And, yeah, we can drain some of it for relief, but thank you so much, and it's incredible. And we know that it's just those little small sound bites. That's all they're going for. It has nothing to do with the truth.
And the media does the rest for them. The media takes it from there. The Democrats pass whatever, beep stick they have to the news media. And like this piece in the Washington Post, the news media cleans it up for them. And you made mention of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which President Trump wanted to, and Barack Obama had drained it for political reasons to a large extent. President Trump saw that, first of all, he because of what he did here as a leader, drove the price of oil down per barrel and said, now is the time to replenish, to refill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which we keep off on the side and don't talk about and keep it there in case of emergency. And the Democrats blocked him and obstructed him and kept him from refilling when price was at not an all-time low,
Historic
but
low.
Yeah, historic low, modern time low. And the Democrats obstructed that and blocked him. And then the Democrats came in, and Joe Biden's been using it like it's just candy to give to the kids in the Gaza on September 11th and abusing it for political reasons. And now that gas prices are really, really high per barrel, the Democrats are talking about a while back refilling the strategic petroleum reserves when it's at the most expensive, and it will cost us the most because that's what they do, Frederick. They do everything wrong.
Total lack of intelligence. And the other thing that's so complex because of the war, we're funding Russia, we're funding everyone else, but now China is building a very large refinery in Africa. And that's a breaking news story from these oil watchers. But that's just going to drive the
You're
price.
an oil watcher.
Yeah.
I can tell you're an oil watcher.
It's crazy, but they're not. They don't care about us. It's about them, not us, the people.
They're not on our side.
No.
Yeah.
And they lack the intelligence. You developed that very thoroughly today, that they don't actually see. They think it's just something little, but the reality is they don't see the larger world ramifications affecting the entire world population. They have no insight. They're working against God, so we know what side they're on there.
Well, and you just touched on something there. I mean, the role that the United States has played in the world, certainly since the end of World War II, or let's say since the beginning of World War II, has been vitally important to freedom-loving people everywhere. And without the United States, we'd be on a slave ship drifting through space. And the left views the role that the United States has played for these generations as all negative. And, the white men, they hate white men. I honestly think we should take their electricity away and airplanes and phones and everything that white men have given them. But that aside, they believe that the United States plays a negative role, a terrible role in the world, and that we must be stopped. And the day that we are stopped, then the tyrants of the world will just feast on the flesh of humanity and take over everything. I've been saying, I don't know how long, I don't think I've said this for a long time, Frederick, but years ago, I used to say that, the tyrants, we don't go around victimizing the good guys of the world. The commies do, the Russians do, the Chinese do, the Iranians do. But only the tyrants of the world need fear the wrath of the United States of America. And if the tyrants of the world do not fear the wrath of the United States of America, then the tyrants of the world have nothing to fear. And that's the role that the United States has played since World War II, certainly, and the Pax Americana of 1945, where we brought peace and prosperity to hundreds and hundreds of millions of people around the world. And honestly, if the tyrants of the world do not fear the wrath of the United States, then the tyrants of the world have nothing to fear, and they will ride roughshod over the planet Earth. And that's kind of what we're watching right now, Frederick. It honestly is.
It really could happen. And without the grace of God and the fear of God and the fear of the United States, they will feast on our flesh because they're puppets. All of them are just puppets of Antifa, of whoever, and the great Satan, the liar.
Yeah.
He's the father of lies. And, it is a puppet show, and they envy our flesh, our fleshly existence.
That is a fact. And you mentioned Antifa, another Democrat Party mob in the streets with their black masks. And Antifa is a communist terrorist group founded in Germany in the 1930s and is now part of the Democrat Party's street brigades. They're black shirts. Hitler had the brown shirts and Mussolini had the black shirts. And the Antifa people are communists. They say they're anti-fascist because the communists were fighting the fascists to see who could kill the most people in the shortest period of time. The Democrat Party taking Antifa under their wing in the 21st century. Dana Bash at CNN. Dana Bash she's an anchor woman, and she does those hard-hitting interviews and stuff. She has a new book out. About the deadliest American election. And I saw this story about the deadliest American election. I said, well, January 6th, because that's Ashley Babbitt Day, right? And it turns out it's not. It's not at all. She's got a book about the 1872 election in the United States. So she calls the deadliest election, something like that. And I was wondering which one. So I looked it up. But she's got this book out. So she was at this radical left-wing bookstore about a mile from the radio station where I sit right now on Connecticut Avenue. Famous Politics and Prose. And C-SPAN, I think, must have cameras built in there for all the left-wing authors that they have little gatherings for, a little circle fest for lefties in upper northwest Washington, D.C. Dana Bash was there at this bookstore, and she's promoting her book about, little American election history. And the crazy she's Jewish, she's a Jewish girl, and her ex-husband is Jeremy Bash, who signed on to that felonious 51, lying to the American people about the Hunter Biden laptop being Russian disinformation. But setting that aside for the moment, her other ex-husband is John King, a CNN anchor. They work in the same building, the ex-husband, ex-wife. It should be a sitcom or something. But she's at this bookstore, and the Jew-hating lunatics showed up and started screaming at her that she's a war criminal. And at the end of World War II, journalists that were complicit in genocide were arrested and charged with crimes, probably hanged or something. And so a crazy woman wearing a surgical mask, screaming at the top of her lungs at Dana Bash in this bookstore.
After World War II, every single journalist that was complicit in their war crimes was charged. You belong behind
That's not
bars.
true.
You belong behind bars. We know who you are. We know what you're saying. It is not a war. It has never been a war. It is ethnic cleansing. It is genocide. There are children getting bombed after.
She's being dragged out by security now. Then a second crazy woman showed up and started screaming at her with the same rhetoric.
My friends have been dying in Gaza, and you have not been reporting it. You call yourself a
It's genocide. You should be in prison.